All right, let's dive right into this explainer and demystify a really complex and honestly highly misunderstood intersection: decentralized energy and blockchain technology. Welcome, everyone. Today we're looking at a massive transition happening right now, both on a global scale and literally right inside our homes. We are moving away from the traditional centralized power grid to something entirely new, incredibly resilient, and surprisingly democratic. But, with this shift comes a lot of anxiety and a ton of technical jargon. So my goal today is to just cut right through that noise and show you exactly how the energy grid of the future is being built. So let's just address the elephant in the room right off the bat, okay? The common fear that weather-dependent renewables, things like wind and solar, are somehow fragile. I mean, you hear it all the time, right? The idea that if the sun isn't shining or the wind isn't blowing, the whole grid is just going to collapse. And this anxiety has actually driven some very real backlash against renewable technologies. It's totally natural for people to assume that a grid relying on unpredictable weather is inherently unstable. Well, to really figure this out, we have to look at the data. A massive comprehensive study was recently published in Nature Energy. Researchers didn't just look at a tiny sample size. They analyzed exactly 2,156 blackouts across 378 U.S. cities spanning a full 20 years. And what they found? It proves the exact opposite of what most people assume. By feeding all this historical data, along with weather conditions and grid compositions, into a deep learning model, they painted a crystal clear picture of what actually causes our power grids to fail. And here is the incredibly counterintuitive part. High renewable modern grids actually experience a decrease in blackout frequency and intensity. When blackouts do happen on these grids, fewer customers are affected and the power is out for a much shorter time. You might be wondering, why is that? Well, because blackouts usually happen due to severe weather extremes or just plain old equipment failure, like old transformers blowing out, not because of renewables. Modern systems with a high proportion of solar and wind tend to be better planned and way more technologically advanced, which absolutely increases overall system resilience.
This kind of data is helping us build a completely new paradigm. We are transitioning from a legacy grid to a world where everyday people become what we call prosumers. Historically, we've only ever been consumers, right? We flip a switch, we pull energy from a distant power plant, and we pay the bill. But with the rapid rise of distributed energy resources, or DERs, things like rooftop solar panels or home battery systems, you aren't just taking energy anymore, you're creating it. You produce and you consume. Prosumer.
Let's picture what this prosumer ecosystem actually looks like in your driveway. Take an electric vehicle hooked up to a smart meter. In this new grid, that EV isn't just a car to get you to work, it's a rolling battery. Through a system called vehicle-to-grid, or V2G, an EV owner can actually use their car's battery storage to push energy back into the grid during peak demand times. The smart meter precisely tracks this two-way flow of electricity. You are literally selling power back to the system while your car is just sitting parked in your garage. To fully grasp how revolutionary this is, think of the legacy grid as a one-way highway. Power travels these massive, long distances from centralized plants directly to your house. And along that massive highway, a whole lot of energy is lost in transmission. It's really inefficient. Now compare that to a decentralized, peer-to-peer or P2P network. It's much more like a local marketplace. If your solar panels generate extra power today, you can sell it directly to your neighbor across the street. The Brooklyn microgrid is a perfect real-world example of this, where neighbors are already trading energy locally and bypassing those massive transmission losses. But here's the catch, right? How do you actually trust your neighbors? How do you ensure you're definitely getting paid for the energy you send them? Enter blockchain. I want you to think of blockchain as a highly secure digital community bulletin board. Every single time you sell energy, it gets pinned to this board. Everyone in the community can verify it's there, but no one, absolutely no one, can secretly alter or erase it. It's a completely tamper-proof ledger that removes the need for some massive central utility company to act as the middleman.
And building right on top of that, we have smart contracts, which basically act like the energy grid's vending machines. Think about how a standard vending machine works. You put in $1, you press A4, and a candy bar drops. There's no cashier, it's just a predefined rule in action. Smart contracts do the exact same thing for energy. You push your surplus solar energy into the neighborhood grid, the predefined pricing rules trigger, and bam, you automatically receive payment in your digital wallet. Instant and completely automatic.
Let's break down this automated trading process step by step so we can really see it in action. Step 1, your smart meter reads the exact amount of energy flowing from your EV or your solar panel into the grid. Step 2, the smart contract acts as the brain, automatically executing the agreed-upon pricing rules without a single human lifting a finger. Step 3, The blockchain securely logs that transaction on our community bulletin board. And to make sure this stays super fast and energy efficient, modern systems use things called light clients or consortium blockchains. That way, your home devices don't have to download the entire global history of the blockchain just to sell a couple of kilowatts.
Now, you might be wondering, how do we actually set the price for all this energy? To manage dynamic prices between the big utility companies and everyday EV owners, systems use really complex algorithms, like something called a Stackelberg game. It sounds super intimidating, I know, but it's basically just a strategic game of leader and follower. The utility company acts as the leader, setting financial incentives and dynamic prices based on what the grid needs at that moment. The EV owners are the followers, strategically responding by either charging their cars when power is cheap or cashing in and discharging power back to the grid when prices are sky high, putting real money right back into their pockets.
Okay, but let's pause for a second. Despite how awesome and seamless this all sounds in theory, we have to face some very real-world barriers. If we want this everywhere, we've got to overcome some structural hurdles. First up is scalability. Can a network actually handle millions of microtransactions per second without crashing? Second, we have to consider the energy consumption of the blockchain itself. We simply can't use massive, energy-hungry systems just to trade clean solar power. We're also looking at serious data privacy concerns because, let's be honest, your energy usage reveals a lot about your daily life. And finally, the absolute biggest roadblock, a severe lack of standardized regulatory frameworks.
To see what these regulatory bottlenecks look like in the real world, let's look at Ukraine. They are actively trying to decentralize their grid right now, relying on these types of peer-to-peer microgrids literally for survival. But they face disproportionate hurdles under their current framework. For instance, there's this arbitrary 20-megawatt limit on financial support for distributed energy projects, combined with incredibly onerous, document-heavy grid connection procedures. All this bureaucratic red tape makes it incredibly difficult for smaller, life-saving microgrid projects to get off the ground when they're needed most.
And the stakes there? They are absolutely sky high. The rapid deployment of these distributed energy resources is absolutely crucial. Ukraine's push for a decentralized grid is a really poignant example of using distributed energy to avoid catastrophic vulnerability during regional power failures caused by wartime attacks. Plus, pivoting to this model helps them avoid pouring billions into massive fossil fuel infrastructure that would essentially just become a stranded asset as the rest of Europe transitions to clean energy.
So how do we take all these lessons and build that resilient future for everyone? To make this decentralized, blockchain-powered grid work securely and at scale, operators need to take a few really decisive actions. First, they must roll out advanced metering infrastructure, those smart meters we talked about, to drastically enhance monitorability. Next, they need to implement interoperable data registries so all these different gadgets and systems can actually talk to each other securely. And crucially, there has to be seamless coordination between the transmission system operators, the folks running the massive energy highways, and the distribution system operators, the ones managing the local neighborhood roads.
Which brings this whole thing right back to your front door. We've seen today that renewable grids don't cause blackouts, they actually prevent them. We've seen how everyday people can use their cars and roofs as automated energy vending machines. So I want to leave you with a final thought on this incredible shift towards true energy resilience. How soon will your own neighborhood become a fully integrated blockchain-powered microgrid? The tech is absolutely already here. Now it's just a matter of connection. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and definitely keep questioning how the world around you is powered.